Chris and I have had the great pleasure of mentoring and ministering to many people over the years. And I can tell you there is no greater joy than seeing a life completely transformed. We also know the power of a testimony. Sharing our lives with others and our stories is a way to bring hope, to build faith, and to demonstrate the power of Jesus to heal hearts, to restore lives. And so on occasion, we will have guests, people we have loved and mentored, sharing their transformation with you. Today we have someone who is very special to us, someone who is very dear, and that is Erica. Erica stood out to both Chris and I on first meeting her. Her passion for Jesus, her heart and her desire to serve the Lord shines brightly to everyone who knows her and everyone who meets her. And so today we will be hearing from Erica about her before and after story. We will be recording this in two parts. Part one is Erica before Jesus. And then part two is the victory that has taken place in her life after Jesus. Please make sure and watch both videos so that you get the complete story about the radical way that Jesus got a hold of Erica's heart and her life and transformed her to be a powerful force for his kingdom to the people that she has ministered over these years. And so, Erica, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for being willing to share your wonderful story of transformation. And so I'd like to start out. Will you just share a bit about your early childhood? What was it that your home life looked like when you were younger?
Well, I was born in Fresno, California, and there's 5 of us. I have 3 brothers and a sister. Everything was great. My mom was the breadwinner of the home, and my father was on disability, had a lot of heart issues. So with growing up, it was my dad, the Mr. Mom.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, it was great having my dad around, football, soccer, all of these things that he has taught us.
And so then things changed in your home and in your life. And would you go ahead and let people know what happened next?
So with the change in my life, my dad ended up dying at the age of 42 years old. He had a heart attack. So with that being said, we lost everything from our home, finances, the family was split apart. A little bit before that, my oldest brother went into the Navy and was stationed here in San Diego, California, which is why I'm here today.
Mm-hmm. And so you had told a bit of the story about what that was like for you at the time that your father had passed away. And just in the way that you're comfortable with, would you share kind of what happened that night? And I mention this because I know that a lot of people that are listening had tragedy strike early on and maybe still are having difficulty recovering from that loss. And so would you go ahead and just kind of describe a bit of what took place that night for you at 9 years old?
Sure. It was around midnight. I had fallen asleep on the floor in the living room, and I remember sneaking into my parents' room all the time because when you're a child, you want to sneak in and sleep with your parents. So I remember sleeping in, getting in at the end of the bed at the feet, and falling back asleep. I don't remember what time it was, but I do remember hearing moaning and groaning, and it was pretty scary. And as I was hearing it, I didn't know where it was coming from until I finally ended up getting up, and I knew it was coming from my dad. The moaning and groaning that I heard was nothing that I've ever heard as being a child. So I woke up my mom and told her that my dad was scaring me. And she tried to wake him up. He wouldn't wake up. And then that's when she told me to go wake up my siblings.
And so what happened next?
So I remember running down the hallway, and at 9 years old, the hallway seemed like a mile run to wake up my siblings because I didn't know what was going on with my father. And as I was screaming down the hallway, waking up my siblings, my brothers went down the hallway and into the room, and immediately it was like a flash between my brothers running down the hallway and the ambulance being there right away.
And so, as you've mentioned, sadly, your father did not recover from that night, and it had a ripple effect not only in your world but in your entire family. And so, can you recall some of the significant changes that took place for you?
Yes. So after that being, my mother had came home. I remember her coming home from the hospital, and I remember lots of people just coming and bringing us food. At 9 years old, you don't know what's happening. And so I remember her coming home from the hospital and running out the screen door saying, "Where's Dad?" And she just broke down crying. I had no idea what was going on. So with that being said, she said that he was never going to come back home. I didn't know what that meant. Nobody ever explained death to me, not even my mom. You got to understand, my mom was young and the same age as my dad, around when he had passed away, and she had 5 children to take care of. So with that being said, she didn't even know how to tell me that, he wasn't coming home. We lost a lot. We lost our home. We lost our car. My mom lost her job. For her, trying to make ends meet to keep the home was way too hard for her, mentally, physically, and emotionally. So I couldn't even imagine being 42 years old, losing your husband with 5 children to feed.
And so, at that time, where was faith in your life? Were you raised with any kind of belief, or was there any discussion about God in all of this?
No. My mom was Catholic and my dad was Christian. A little bit before my dad had passed, I remember him taking us to church. And I remember just being in the presence of a lot of people raising their hands and speaking in tongues. Now, at 9 years old, you don't know what that means, right? And not knowing that anybody, had shared the Lord with me. But I do remember my dad raising his hands, and I remember everybody going over and praying over him, and he got saved before he passed. So I do have that memory. I was baptized Catholic because my mom was a very strong Catholic. Now that is an understatement. Very strong Catholic woman. And so, I've had a little bit of the Lord in my life, but not knowing him, deeply like I know him now.
Mm-hmm. And so there wasn't a faith that you could grab onto. Did people say, because sometimes when there's an unexpected loss, people can say things like, well, he's in a better place, or, God needed another angel, and they're very well meaning. But it's not necessarily helpful. Do you remember anybody trying to comfort you with ideas that he was in heaven, or?
No, nobody comforted me, not even my mother. It was basically I lost my dad and my mom at the same time. She didn't know how to comfort me. All I knew is my dad was gone. I had nowhere knowing where he went. I was very angry. I thought my mom took my dad away. It was almost like a divorce. I felt like he was just gone, but dreaming that he might come back. That's how it felt.
And so from there, you said that your brother joined the military. And so did the whole family relocate then to the San Diego area?
So my brother had joined the military, I believe, maybe a couple of years before that. Maybe about 2 or 3 years before that, because my sister-in-law was living with us at that time. So when we lost the home, we lost everything, my mom had contacted him and asked him if we could stay there until we got back on our feet. He was on a ship. So with that being said, my sister-in-law pretty much moved with him. My mom tried to save the house, tried to save everything. And at that point, we ended up going to go live with him, which was very hard.
And so how was that difficult for you?
The move was difficult because, number one, my dad had basically took care of all of us. And to be with my mom 24/7 was very difficult because she was a loving mom, don't get me wrong, but it was more attachment to my father because he was with us all the time. So it was difficult leaving the home. It was difficult. Before my dad had passed away, he had told my mother that he was going to build me a clubhouse because I believe he knew something was going to happen. So he built me a clubhouse. I even asked my mom at 9 years old, I asked my mom, can we take it with us? And she said, no, I'm sorry, we can't. So as a 9-year-old, you're thinking, why do we have to leave? You're not thinking the financial part of it. You're not thinking anything. You're just thinking, why do we have to leave? And so it was difficult leaving. I had a dog. Leaving your father in a home where you grew up, you're thinking, if I leave this house, I'm never going to see him again. So I didn't want to leave. But it was best for all of us to leave.
And so now that you're here in San Diego and you've undergone all of these changes, how did that affect the choices that you started to make?
Well, I did have to go to school here. But between this, my family has been back and forth from San Diego to Fresno several times. And throughout my years, I've been back and forth to Fresno. And that would be because of a lot of things that were going on in my life. But it affected me from different schools. I can't even count to you how many schools not only I went to, but my siblings went through. Change, as you're a kid, you lose all your friends. So being back and forth to Fresno and San Diego so many times, there wasn't time enough to have friends.
And so you then were about how old?
So around maybe 12ish, I started seeing more angerness inside of me, to the point where I would tell my mom I hate her. And why did she let my dad go? And I wanted him back. It was very difficult because, again, I was not told what death meant. I remember being at his funeral. I remember him being in a casket. But again, I was not told what death meant. I was believing that my dad was going to come back. So it was very difficult not knowing anything, and my mom being a strong Catholic, and I'm not talking about Catholics, I'm not talking about religion, I'm just talking about what my mom had us believe. And so I just thought that he was going to come back. I really honestly did.
And you know, you're saying something that I think is important for people who have been through a loss early on, is that tendency to try and look for an explanation or look for somebody or something to blame. And oftentimes people will turn to the surviving parent and think somehow it's their responsibility or their fault that this is happening. Or they look to themselves, even as children, that maybe if they would have been better somehow, maybe if they would have been good or kinder, that then their parent wouldn't have passed away. And then some get very angry at God and think that if God is a loving God, then how come he's done this and taken my dad? Do you remember any feelings towards God at all in that time?
It's funny you say that because, like I said, I didn't know God. I knew what my dad has showed me a little bit in going to church, but I do remember at a young age saying, I hate him so much. I hate God for taking my dad. And just crying like we're just bring him back, and just hating him, like really honestly hating him, but not knowing him. So how could I hate somebody I didn't really know? But I remember as a child, I hated him.
And so having all of this anger that started to build up, what happened to your life? What were some of the choices that you started making that were evidence of the anger and the hatred that was brewing inside of you?
There was a lot of things that have happened in my childhood that not only my dad had passed away, a lot of things that have happened to me in a young age were began to creep into my life where hatred became stronger. And so with that being said, I felt like I wasn't being taken care of, protected, being that my dad was gone. So with that not being protected by a father or even by my mother, I felt myself being angry, withdrawing just definitely from everybody and anybody who tried to talk to me or even tried to comfort me.
And so you had shared in your testimony that some other very inappropriate and hurtful acts were perpetrated on you as a child, and just in the way that you're comfortable with. Erica, would you share that with people? Because again, I know that there are so many young women and young men that had experiences that were devastating, that started to shape who they were going to be in their teens and as an adult. And so just in ways that you're comfortable with, can you tell people that?
Yeah, sure. I like that you said young women and young men because I want to let you know that not only that it happens to young women, it also happens to young men. And it's very important that I say that because not only that I'm telling you this as a woman, but I want you to understand as a man, you're not alone. So when I was about 11, 12 years old, I was molested by my uncle. I did tell my mom, but we kind of like, I'm sorry, not we, my mother kept it a secret. She didn't tell anybody, not my siblings, nobody. And so it was really hard for me to understand why it happened. And so, and again, I'm going back in not having somebody protect me. So when my mom didn't move further into it, she thought that counseling was going to help me. Now, counseling did not help me at a young child, because the counselor in school that they used would tell me, if you open up to me, I will give you this toy. And I remember saying, okay, I'm going to trust and I'm going to open up to this counselor. And I remember telling her something to the effect of, but nothing about what happened to me with being molested. I was testing her if I could trust her. And so with that being said, she didn't give me that toy. So at that young age, it's remarkable how we protect ourselves.
Yeah, it is.
And so just thinking about it right now and how I protected myself, after that, I was never going to talk to anybody ever again. Now, a simple toy could do that to a child, and back then they didn't know how to counsel like we counsel now.
Right.
And so with that being said, it was just nothing how I know counselors talk to children nowadays. Now, when I got molested, it would have been very helpful for my mother to tell my siblings, because when you see my testimony and how much it affected me, in a way it was fully imaginably things that you could not even say, you did that? Yes, anger, rage, untrust, things like that do that to a child.
And so after that took place and you didn't receive the support and the care that you really needed, not at home and not from, the professionals that were at school, what did you become as a teen?
So it was before I was a teen. In elementary school, I remember bullying some kids and asking, why am I this way? And I remember hating children. I just remember hating everybody around me, and would be that person where if you were bullying another person, I would help that person that person was bullying. But then again, I was that bullier too. And so, and I hope you can relate to that, because when something like that happens to you, you're either a bullier or you're the bullied, somebody who bullies you. So it can go both ways. But so I tend to bully people and hated children, just didn't want to be around anybody. And if I did, I was a manipulator. I was fake at it. It wasn't truly who I was. I wasn't even a teen yet. I started drinking at the age of 12 and sneaking drinks with family members, just thinking that this makes me feel good. This makes me feel okay. I don't have to think about the things that have happened to me. Until I grew up into smoking weed, doing other things like coke, anything I can get my hands on, I did it to take the pain away. And so I grew into fighting people, hating people, stealing, found out that I couldn't live without being numb with the drinks and the drugs. And that helped me cope with my life and helped Erica not feel the pain that Erica was truly in.
And again, Erica, I so appreciate what you're sharing, because there are so many people who started using substances and finding unhealthy ways to cope with things that were going on in their heart or going on in their world that they just didn't feel like they had any control over. And so it's really common that people will start self-medicating at an early age with things like, drugs and alcohol. And there are certainly other things that people can turn to as a way to escape. They just don't want to be in their world anymore, and they just don't want to be in life. And they don't know how to make it stop. And so from there, what started happening for you in your schoolwork?
I just couldn't think. I hated school. I didn't want to be in school. I just didn't trust anybody. If somebody said, do your homework, you're going to get good grades, you're going to be able to do this and do that, it was like one ear and out the other, because it was just like, you don't know what happened to me. And you're telling me if I do good, I'm going to get good? How could that be? With so much anger, and how could Erica recover from this? I didn't see a way out of recovering from the things that have happened to me. How could somebody treat a child the way they treated me? I didn't understand. And so with that being said, any kind of adult that would try to better me, I hated more.
And so you mentioned that you started to get into stealing. Was there any other criminal activity that you got involved with? Again, just share what you're comfortable with.
So my brother was into drugs. So I would remember in high school, I used to sell for him. And so with that being said, I don't even think I could imagine myself at that young age in selling. But that was fast money, and that's what I knew. And so everything else that happened in my life, I was going to make that quick dollar. And whatever I could do to show people that I'm going to make it, no matter what they think of me, I'm going to make it. Even if it was being a criminal,
Right.
I was going to do it. Because I didn't think Erica could do anything else but being a criminal, because I felt like a criminal. A victim of molestation, a victim of physical, emotional abuse. So with making that fast dollar, it helped me, comforted me that I have control of my life. And I'm going to do it no matter what anybody says, until my brother ended up getting caught, and he did prison time. And with that prison time, when he came out, and I smile now because I knew God now made him go to prison so he can see who he is today. Because when he got out, he was like, I'm never doing this again.
Right.
And he stopped. And so with him being stopped, I stopped selling, but I didn't stop doing other things. I was way too deep into it.
And so as your high school years progressed, what are some of the other things that you started to resort to? How did those early experiences with molestation affect your relationships with men, boys?
So I remember in high school having a couple of boyfriends. I wasn't, I was promiscuous, but I didn't have sexual relations until I was about 18. Being that I don't know why, because most people are, not most people, just me. You would think that happened to her, she's going to be everywhere. But that's not what happened to me. I remember having boyfriends, and I remember cheating on them. And after cheating on them, telling them I'm sorry, please take me back. After so many times of cheating and, distrust, they're like, no, this is not what I want. But I do remember in high school being in a long relationship, and it was about almost 3-year relationship. And that being said, I didn't cheat on him, but it was the other way around. So when you're cheated on, it's totally, whoa, now I know how these people feel, but yeah.
So high school comes to an end. Were you able to finish?
No, I didn't finish high school. I was way too much into hanging out with the older kids in high school. I never hung out with anybody my age or younger. It was always somebody older. And so I was a junior and hanging out with seniors and just partying it up and not caring about life, not caring about school, seeing them um, graduate and doing things in life, getting a job. And, I had a job at the age of 15. I worked at Taco Bell for 3 years. So that kind of put money in my pocket because my mom, like I said, she was there, but wasn't really there. So it pretty much helped me put money in my pocket. But with that being said, in high school, I didn't graduate. I asked my mom that I don't want to be back in school anymore. I want to go to beauty school. Now, back in the day, it was the thing for everybody, women, to want to go to beauty school and they want to be a cosmetologist. And my mom was an instructor for cosmetology. So she did take me to the principal's office and she got me out of school and I was supposed to start cosmetology. Now, back in the day, it was really hard to start if you didn't have a diploma. But my mom knew everybody, so she was going to get me in. And this was years ago, not too many years ago. This was years ago. So with that being said, I didn't go to cosmetology school. I ended up just staying, working at Taco Bell, and made a wreck out of my life by just partying it up and doing what Erica wanted to do.
And so as you moved forward, what happened after high school concluded and cosmetology school didn't finish? What steps did you take and where did your life start to go from there?
Now, I'm going to tell you this story only because this needs to be told. In high school, I ended up getting pregnant. And the boyfriend that I was with had another girl pregnant. And so he ended up leaving me for her. Now, to this day, I'm not sure if she was really pregnant, but at the age of 17 and a half, almost 18 years old, I got pregnant and I ended up having an abortion. Now, I'm telling you this because you're not alone. And if you're going through things, this may be a way to share with somebody else. If you know Erica, like anybody else knows me, I'm going to tell you how it is because I don't want you to make a wreck out of your life for so many years like I did. And it really hurt me that I did that. So it took a lot of healing in that effect. But I'm telling you this because I made a wreck out of my life by doing that. But at that age, I was just like, how am I going to take care of a kid? I work at Taco Bell. This man's not even in my life. How am I going to father and mother a child when I couldn't even mother or father myself? So that choice was made in a way for my future where I didn't even know where it was going to go, but also for the child I knew I couldn't raise.
And, again, I really thank you for your honesty and your transparency because, this is a real issue. Everybody knows statistically where things are at in terms of women who are opting for abortions. And they don't oftentimes hear the ramifications of that choice in the life of a woman who makes that choice. And as Erica is sharing, it's with compassion and with love that she's sharing this, because women who make that choice and men who are also in that area of responsibility when that choice is made, there is a feeling of being trapped and a feeling of overwhelm at times, and circumstances that are less than ideal to bring a child into. And so this is an area that Erica and I both feel very strongly needs to be addressed more openly and outwardly in the church and in the body of Christ, because so many people are hurting and have this secret and feel alone. And so thank you, Erica, for sharing that. And so from that place, again, you're experiencing things that have you know what it's like to be a victim, and have you know what it's like to be cheated on when you were previously the one that was doing the cheating. And so where does it all go from there for you?
So at that point, I remember my mother and I were still living together. We lived together, and listening to my mom, and my mom was a I'm gonna say this nicely. My mom was a manipulative person, but I don't want to say wrong things or mean things about my mother, because she was a strong mom. She took care of 5 children. But what I'm saying is she manipulated me and my sister and my other 3 brothers to the point where we couldn't just believe her anymore. There was a bunch of secrets and a bunch of things that she had said, that to the point when you're growing up, you tend to be the manipulator until you get healing and you're like, whoa, I was that person too. But yeah.
And so you moved forward from being involved in different relationships, having gone through pregnancy and an abortion. And what started to happen for you in terms of your own expression personally? And what started to happen for you in terms of relationships with men?
So with relationships with men were very difficult for me, because I didn't trust anybody. I didn't want anybody touching me. I was always asking, where are you? Where are you going to be? You know, just, it was to the point where like I couldn't even live my life being happy with somebody or anybody, even friendships, until I met my ex-husband. Right after this abortion, I met my ex-husband.
And so tell us a bit about your marriage, and also the fact that you did go on to have 2 daughters.
Yes. So I met my ex-husband at a job that we met each other at. And so with that being said, we were together for almost a year before I found out he had a girlfriend for 3 years. And at that point, I was already in love with this man. Like, there was no going back. I loved him so much. His family was beautiful. His brother, his sister, they were just so loving, to a point where I fell in love with the family too, because I didn't have that family. And so when I found out, I was devastated. But he ended up leaving her, and we ended up having our own family. 2 beautiful children.
Yes. And so now you're in a married life. You had some hurt early on in that, but you have your children. You have your two girls.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sounds like at this point things are starting to make a change, and you've turned a corner and have found a place where you feel loved and you feel safe and you belong. But that's not how it turned out.
No, it sounds nice, but throughout the relationships of me being pregnant, he was still cheating on me. And so, with that being said, after I had my child, um, it was just horrible. Trust issues, like where are you at, or I couldn't even be at work, or and where's my child? Is my child with him and her, or whoever. So it was really hard. It was really tough, trying to hang on to a marriage when I couldn't even hang on to love myself. So I always say, if you can't love yourself, you can't love anybody. And Erica didn't love herself. So I was still hanging on to that hope where he's going to be a good father. It's going to be okay. And till my daughter was 4, I ended up getting the strength to just say, I have to do this. And all of this was in Fresno, California. So I ended up moving my daughter to San Diego with my family. And she was 3 or 4. And that's where my life pretty much went crazy after that.
And so talk about what happened next, because again, I just so appreciate Erica's honesty and her transparency in sharing this with you, because sometimes the chaos and the mess that takes place in a person's life, it doesn't usually happen overnight. It's a series of events that culminate in a chaos for a person that just continues to spiral and just continues to get more out of control. So you're in San Diego with your 3-year-old daughter, separated from your husband. And so how do things become more chaotic for you?
So when I did move here, the drinking got worse, the partying got worse. My brother and my sister-in-law would take care of my daughter. But I was still working. I was a functioning alcoholic drug addict. I was still working. I did whatever I could to protect and take care of my daughter. But with that being said, I let him come to live with me back to San Diego. Then the trust issues come. I'm telling you this because if you're going to go back and forth, 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 you just get tired. The children get emotionally detached from what's going on with mommy and daddy. So yes, sometimes I wish things would have happened differently, but I wouldn't be who I am today. But yes, I let him come back, which comes my second child and us getting married.
And so now you have the 2 babies, you get married. Did you stay here in the area in San Diego, or did you go back up north?
Yes, we did stay here in the area. After I had my first child, before I did let him go back, and this is very important. I want to say this because this is my testimony, and it seems short because it's a lot to cramp in, but before I let him come back with my child being 3 or 4 years old, I was a wreck. I drank. I did every drug possible. I met friends. I was at the bar constantly, all the time. Leaving my child, but still taking care of her. I wasn't a bad mom at that point. I was getting there. So with being in jobs back and forth because of being an alcoholic and a drug addict, I was always calling in, losing my jobs and all of that stuff that was going on. So Erica, again, wanted to make fast money. This is very important for me to tell you because this is where the non-loving yourself comes in, and this is where the childhood trauma and torment comes in. So I ended up becoming a stripper. Now, I'm telling you this because things that you have done in your life, you are forgiven already before you've already done it. At that point in time, I just wanted to make fast money. I had to take care of a 3-year-old. I had to put food on the table. There was things that I needed to do. Not only that, there was drugs and alcohol at the place where I could still be and have fun and make money and come home and be a mom. There was fast money in it. So I did become a stripper here in San Diego. Going to house parties and, doing things on my own. Just mainly just stripping. And so when I finally just said enough's enough, I let him come back. And that's when we had my second child. And for my second child, being pregnant with my second child totally helped me, grounded me, and to the point where I stopped everything. We got married. I stopped everything. I thought everything was doing really good until she turned 2 years old, and I found him cheating again, and Erica started cheating, and so it was just coming back, and coming back. Nothing was ever changing.
Right.
So we ended up getting a divorce.
And that's something that I like to share with people. There's a saying that's well known, nothing changes if nothing changes. And sometimes couples get in this very broken cycle of trying to make things work without either one really getting the help that they need, without either one really making the changes and doing the hard work that's necessary. And at this point in Erica's life, neither one had found a relationship with God and with Jesus that was really going to give them a different outcome. So there's another saying that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And that is what was happening in the dynamic between Erica and her husband. Not that there wasn't love at different points, not that they weren't trying, and not that they didn't love their children. The exact opposite is true. But that love kept them in this cycle of dysfunction with no way to break it and no way out. And so what happened from there, Erica? Now you're divorced, you have the 2 girls, and where did life go from there?
Well, just you talking right now kind of made me emotional because I really did love my ex-husband, and I know he really did love me. So I just think about if we really honestly had the Lord in our heart, it would have worked, because anything works with the Lord. If you truly have the Lord in your heart, anything works. I know that things happen for a reason, and I am who I am today because of that reason, but it hurts me because I really honestly feel that it would have worked if God was in our hearts. So, yeah. I'm sorry, what was the question?
No, thank you for sharing that, because people oftentimes look and they're saying, they're hurting and they're hurting each other, and they don't want to, and they just want to be loved. They
Yes.
just want to be loved. They just want to be accepted. They just want to know love. and they want to be a good mom and they
Yes.
want to be a good dad, but they just don't have the tools and they just don't have the change of heart that happens when Jesus becomes the Lord of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Erica, from there, where did things go? You were working, earning money, kind of.
So, after stripping, during stripping, I knew a lot of people. So when we got that divorce, I ended up um, so I think I just need to say this though,
Mm-hmm.
because during the divorce, my ex-husband and I, we fought. It was physically, mentally, and verbally abuse. And if he wasn't hitting me, I wasn't happy. I thought for him to hit me and hate me would make him love me. I don't know why. I do know that I was pretty messed up, being everything that happened in my childhood. So if we weren't arguing or yelling at each other, I didn't see that love.
Right.
I do know now what it is, but if we weren't arguing or fighting or fist fighting or punching each other or anything, I didn't think that we loved each other. And that's how I thought, that's what I thought love was.
Right.
Um, so when we got divorced, my oldest daughter was 2. She was still getting out of Pampers. I had a 3-bedroom apartment. I had to take care of things myself. I worked at a really nice firm in La Jolla, California. But that wasn't enough money for me. Being in San Diego is very expensive, and with 2 children, daycare, and so forth. My ex-husband was not helping me. I met a guy at a bar, and he said, "Do you want to bartend for me?" And I was like, "I know nothing about bartending." And he goes, "I'll teach you." So I was like, okay, he said you can make a lot of money in it. And I'm like, okay, fine. And then that's, yes, made my life a living hell because it only made things worse. I was bartending and had my regular job, bartending at 3 bars. My regular job, I had to bring in a friend of mine. She came to live with us to take care of my children. And so there was hardly no time with my children. But when there was time with my children, they had everything they wanted because I had the money. But there wasn't bonding time as a mother should bond. So it was come home, get ready, go to work. Come home, get ready, go to work. Pay the bills, come home, get ready, go to work. Most of the time I was home, I was drunk, from the divorce, from not being loved, not even remembering what had happened in my childhood. I would be in the shower and just cry and say, what is wrong with me? Something's wrong with me. What is wrong with me? Why am I doing these things that I'm doing? But I truly didn't know what was wrong with me. I do now, but I truly didn't understand. I thought I was going to live this way for the rest of my life. I was going to be struggling and hustling for that next dollar to take care of my children, take care of what I need to take care of, and it was going to be just it. Sometimes there was times where I didn't even come home. I was sleeping with different men. I would wake up with different people by my side. Not only men, I was sleeping with women. When you don't know your identity, you do things where you don't even know that you would think you would do. You think it's funny, but it's not funny. So I didn't know true love, so my identity was everywhere. I was trying to find love, and I knew that men couldn't give it to me because I didn't trust them. So I thought, I'm going to find it in a woman. And even then, I couldn't trust them. So it was hard for me to find that trust in any kind of relationship. even my family, like there was times where I couldn't even trust my family, and they knew I was going downhill. They would tell me, Erica, what are you doing? What are you doing? It was to the point where I was a wrecking ball, from getting DUI after DUI after DUI, being in jail, in and out of jail for the things that I have done to myself. And it was just basic hell, and I didn't know how to get out.
And so I want us to fast forward a bit because, we have so much to share as far as Erica's after story. And you will see the miraculous transformation that has taken place in her life. And so fast forward, because things continued to progress. You were working as a stripper, but things moved forward from there. And I remember you telling me that you ended up in a very dark place in life. And so kind of tell people how things progressed in terms of your sexual acting out to where you ended up in the darkness that you endured.
Well, the darkness happened when my ex-husband decided to take it upon himself and move to Fresno. And so I was just basically taking care of my children myself. He ended up finding a girlfriend in whom he's married to now. And so they came to San Diego to take the children for the summer. And this is where it begins. I was slapped with court papers stating that he was going to take my children. And long story short, he did. The court granted him full custody. No matter what I did, he was already in Fresno. They were already in school. So my children were taken away from me. That, when you're a mother or a father, when your children are taken away from you, you don't care about anything else. Nothing whatsoever. And so with that being said, the drinking got worse. The DUIs got more. The drugs got more. The sleeping around got more. Things just went to the point where I did not care about life. I didn't care about anything. There was points and times where I didn't even want to go to the court dates that were happening. I would just get the court papers and throw them in the fire because Erica didn't want to deal with life. It's hard for me to say because you would be like, why didn't you fight for your children? He had an attorney. Erica was a drug and alcoholic. So in my thoughts, I'm never going to win them back. That's how I thought, because I was already a wreck. How am I going to win them back with just little old me going in court? Erica's been in jail. Erica has all these DUIs. Erica's this, Erica's that. And I've heard it my whole entire life, that how am I going to win my children back from this? How am I going to recover from this? So I ended up moving back to Fresno, and things just got worse and worse. And there wasn't any winning my children back from that until at a party house, one of my friends came up to me and she said, what do you want to do with your life? Is this what you want to do with your life? Nobody's ever asked me that before. Nobody's ever told me that. I was always heard that, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Da, 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 da. Instead of saying, honestly, is this what you want in life? What do you want to do with your life? At that point in time, I sat there in her backyard and said, really, what do I want to do with my life? My children were taken away from me. I had no job. I was sleeping in my car. I had a black bag full of clothes. That's all I had. I lost everything. And I sat there and just crying and just saying, what do I want to do with my life? Until I heard a voice say, call your godmother. And my godmother at the time lived in Pismo Beach. I was living in Fresno at that time. I hadn't talked to her in years. And she loves the Lord. On my dad's side, loves the Lord. They're all deacons and pastors and ministers. And I said, okay, I'm going to get a hold of my godmother. I don't know why, but I know I heard what I heard.
And so, because that's such an important part of your turnaround, what I'd like you to just capture briefly is just some of the other points that you came to in your life in the before picture. And so how were you making money?
So I was working for my friend at a t-shirt shop. And so she was helping me. I was staying with her. I didn't have a room, but there was places where I stood. I was staying. Let's just say I was staying everywhere. But I'm glad you said to rewind, because before that I've had overdosed. I've done things to the point where like I couldn't sleep. I would stay up for days, and I was seeing things and hearing things, and honestly I would be in the shower and things would be kill yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I would hear kill yourself, hang yourself. And back to a little bit rewinding, I did try to commit suicide. I took a whole bottle of Tylenol PM and drank a whole bottle of Jack Daniels to wake up the next day and saying, why am I still here? But yeah, so there's a lot of things that have went on before I heard the Lord's voice.
And so with that, we're going to stop this portion of Erica's story. You're getting a clear picture of some of the things that she has survived and endured. And so our hope is, by her sharing this, that if you're facing difficulties, if you're struggling with addiction, if you've been in situations where you haven't been able to be a good parent to your children, or if you've lost your children or have been in and out of jail, what we both want you to know and hear is there is hope. That in Erica's life, I can attest to this personally, the story doesn't end here. And so I encourage you to watch both videos, as the second one will reveal what happens next as Jesus begins to move in her heart and in her life and in the life of the people that she loves.